Hello and welcome to another episode of Back of the Grid. I'm your host this week, Tom. I am joined, as always, by Stu.
Hello.
And Chris.
Hello.
Hello. So, obviously, we have no review to do this week. I think it's worth talking a little bit about the events around Imola, just because I think we need to sort of bring some of it to attention and discuss bits and pieces from it before we jump straight into Monaco. But
okay,
yeah, I mean,
let's not go too crazy though.
yeah,
I've
been bitten before by going too deep into these.
There's definitely things worth mentioning regarding it.
I mean, ultimately, cancelling the race was absolutely the right thing to do. I don't think anyone has any issue with that. I think it's kind of a weird thing to praise F1 for, but I feel like when there's been stuff going on around races in the past, they've tended to wait until the last possible second to make a decision. Whereas this time they kind of pretty early in the week just made the right call, which is rare for F1 and the FIA when it comes to these sort of things. Like thinking back to Melbourne a few years ago when you had fans at the gates before they were like, oh, actually, we might not do this one, fellas. But
I think this one was kind of like, it was pretty obvious.
It was extremely obvious, yeah.
You know, you're going to have to cancel it. Like when the whole circuit's being flooded, I don't think and it's like 4 days before the race.
Yeah, exactly.
That's recoverable. So
yeah. Plus, you've got like things like emergency services probably had better things to think about than
Agreed.
A few thousand people coming to watch a race. F1 have also donated €1 million to the region to help the relief funds, as have Ferrari, which is obviously very good at both of them. And I know a lot of drivers have been doing like the Twitch generation of drivers have been doing kind of fundraisers and stuff online in the last week, I think. Hats off to Yuki Tsunoda as well, who was literally out there like helping clean up, because obviously the Tauri factory is not far from there. And I believe he lives around there. And he was just out there helping people clean up. And it wasn't like he was out there in team gear and had like photographers and stuff. It was just someone happened to see him and took a picture with a mobile phone. He was just out there because he wanted to go and do a good thing. Yeah, I've got so much time for that.
That's refreshing. Really. I think because I did see like a tweet or some news or something, and I just chose not to read it because my assumption was, it's probably just some social media guff that they've made him do. But actually, the fact that it looks like he's done it off his own back,
just off him completely,
no team logos or anything involved. I've got a lot of time for that.
Yeah, it's a good aim,
definitely.
But yeah, and obviously if people want to help out, F1 have shared lots of links to like where you can donate and stuff, and we'll probably drop those things in the show notes because it is just awful out there. And obviously there's just more important things than race cars sometimes. So
yep.
Ultimately, the right thing was done. I guess we will, though, talk about there are sort of sporting implications of there being one less race. It feels like a weird thing to segue into, but we'll awkwardly do it. Obviously, the biggest one is that pretty much everyone had upgrades planned, which now they're in the quandary of, do you bring upgrades to Monaco?
Yeah.
Like Mercedes have already said they're going to go ahead and bring their upgrade package to Monaco, which seems risky. Bold.
Well, they've had an extra week to produce spares and stuff, though, haven't they? So
true.
Yeah,
I think they'll be all right. I think you your back's against the wall. It's kind of like, when's the best time to introduce upgrades on that car? Whenever you've got them, I would say.
It's going to be different for different teams, isn't it?
Yeah,
it puts a bit of extra pressure on the drivers to not immediately go out there and break the new parts. I imagine some teams are a little more confident than others in their drivers to
I was going to
treat the upgrades well.
If you've got two drivers that you can trust not to smash, touch wood, but if you can trust two drivers not to smash up your new parts on the first outing with them, then they've probably got the two drivers best for that.
Mercedes, you mean?
Yeah.
I would think so.
They're probably one of the teams with the best drivers that they don't have to worry about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't know, Alfa Tauri going around with Nick de Vries. And yes, to be fair to Yuki Tsunoda, he's not done much crashing this season, but still,
Nick de Vries has stepped up to that role.
Yeah, it's crashing for both of them.
He's crashing for 2. Obviously, there's like side things like it's one less race for power unit components to survive because they were really under pressure this season for that. Slightly less budget cap pressure, less pressure on Gasly because he has been 2 penalty points away from a race ban for quite a while now, but 2 of those have actually expired in the last week. So he's now only 4 points away from a race ban, which is still not a great place to be, but he's survived the worst of it.
Yeah, and most of those points are probably for, I don't know, like
track limits
or speeding in the pit lane by 1 millimeter over the line of the pit lane and then down under the speed.
Yeah, I think we covered it at the time that the amount of penalty points he had that were for actual sort of, let's call it like
racing incidents.
Like actual racing incidents where he disadvantaged another driver or done something that you'd deem penalty point worthy was like 1 out of all of them. We're like worth the points, as we put it. Yeah.
Classic.
But, yeah.
So, I mean, he never deserved to be anywhere near to a race ban, so at least he's kind of dodged that a little bit. Mm-hmm. Interestingly as well, it technically means that we're now going to have 5 street track races in a row. It obviously depends on you classing Albert Park and Miami as street tracks, which technically they are.
I think a better way of putting it is 5 not normal tracks in a row.
Temporary circuits.
Yeah, I would say like Bahrain really is the only circuit that we've had that was remotely
it's purpose-built.
And even Bahrain, like that is a little bit weird because the tarmac there is not like at other circuits because of the heat of the desert. It's a much more sort of durable, heat-proof tarmac that doesn't heat up in the same way as other circuits and doesn't have the same sort of nitty-gritty roughness to it that other circuits do. So we haven't had a single race yet this season where the circuit is representative of what a normal Formula One track is like.
Imagine we get to Barcelona now and just the whole order completely changes.
It could. Like these tires. No. I've talked a lot about tires already this season. Like no one seems to quite have a handle exactly on what the tires are going to do on a particular race weekend. So it'll be interesting going to Monaco and seeing what they do there. But I'm much more interested in getting to Spain and seeing how the order does change, especially with all the upgrades and things that people are bringing.
That kind of leads us into a first bit of inbox we'll grab, which we've kind of already touched on, but Wes said, hey man, will teams bring the upgrades they have planned for Imola or will they wait until Spain? And I think, I just given how close the grid is this year, like there's no room to stand still. I think if you don't want to fall back, you've just got to, haven't you?
You got to take the risk.
Yeah.
Like the gaps between the teams are so small this year.
And like Stu was saying before, though, some of the teams will almost need the gain, even if it's only small at a place like Monaco. Some like Mercedes, they just want to get anything on it that they can that will give them any advantage that
get
they can.
Mileage on it.
And just even start to understand them, even if it's not a full understanding, at least they've got some idea of the positive or negative impact something's having on it as a change.
Yeah, and obviously certain teams are bringing much bigger updates than other teams as well. If you bring in just like new bits, aero bits, or a Monaco-specific aero package, then obviously that's going to be your aero package. I think the interesting thing about Mercedes is not only are they, vastly updating their car, jury's out on whether it'll be an upgrade or not. They're obviously going to throw all the downforce on it for this circuit because it's not a power circuit; it's a grip circuit. So it'll be interesting to see what that car is. Going to be very interesting to see what that car looks like. I reckon it's going to have so much wing on it compared to compared to the other front runners. I think they're going to run a lot of wing this weekend.
I'm interested to see what they do to that car to try and salvage it because they're saying all the right things that they. Have a direction, they sort of know what they want to do. So, yeah. Right, I'm going to move on to a weird bit of tangential news here, but it's pretty interesting in of itself. And that is, once again, we've got rumours of a return of A1 GP. So, for anyone who doesn't know it, I genuinely think this is actually really interesting. So A1GP, for those people who don't know, was a single-seater series that ran between 2005 and 2009. Pretty much ever since then, like every couple of years, there's been some kind of like rumor of somebody wanting to bring it back. But this is definitely the version of that rumor that's got the most substance I've ever seen by quite a way, actually. So it kind of styled itself as a World Cup of motorsport. So all of the teams were a nationality. In theory, the driver was rather that nationality, but in practice, they didn't have to be. So you got weird things like, I was looking down the driver list earlier, and it's got like Graham Rahal driving for Lebanon and just really weird pairings like that. But you had like, so Sergio Perez did it for a while, Sebastian Buemi, Karun Chandhok, Nico Hulkenberg won a bunch of races. Even Jos Verstappen entered it for a while. Like if you look down the list of names, most of them are recognisable, if not for drivers that made it to F1, they made it to IndyCar, or they popped up in GP2 and stuff. They managed 4 seasons and then it collapsed. Surprise, surprise, for financial troubles, and ultimately got liquidated. But yeah, so there's now these rumours of it coming back, with the project being led by Marcin Bukowski, who you'll probably remember as Alpine team principal for a few seasons.
Yeah.
And he was an FIA technical delegate.
Yes, he was technical coordinator or something like that, I think he was. So, yeah, a guy who's
in the FIA. Yeah.
Something technical. And it's been backed by a guy called Sir Keith Mills, who was he led the London 2012 Olympics campaign, which obviously was very successful. Interestingly, he's also the man who started Nectar Points, for those of you in the UK.
What a trio of things to put on your
I know, right?
portfolios.
If
Nectar Points, the London 2012 games, and return of A1GP.
If you don't know what a Nectar Point is, think of it as like a rewards card for just spending money at certain places. And if there's all kinds of them all over the world. If you buy your groceries from Sainsbury's, say, then you'll get Nectar Points.
Yeah.
Instead of having like a Tesco's club card points, which won't know what that is either if you're not in the UK. Doesn't really. But I think you get the idea.
That might be the weirdest tangent we've ever been on. Also involved is Origin Sports Group. They're an investment firm that's done stuff with like America's Cup and Invictus Games. Mike Gascoigne is apparently involved on the technical side, who is just an absolute veteran of F1.
Yeah.
So they're already in talks with lots of investors aiming to raise $100 million to start things off. Weirdly, the story said that they are in talks with They're in talks with prospective engine and car manufacturers. And then the story also says they've got a working prototype. And both of those things can't be true. So I'm not sure exactly where these...
Well, I mean, they could have. I
guess they
built
could.
A prototype using an engine from elsewhere and just, something that they can show manufacturers and say, this is the car, this is how fast it goes with the engine that we've got in it. With your engine.
I suppose so. But they're talking about it being like over 200 mile an hour cars, second only to F1 in terms of speed. They're open wheel, open cockpits.
What are they doing to differentiate it from Formula One? Anything in particular, or is it just...
I mean, their big selling point was always the whole World Cup of motorsport. They're very much on the like people like to support their nation side of things.
I don't buy. I'm not tuning in for that reason.
That doesn't feel very motorsport, does it? Like, other than Race of Champions, I can't think of another thing that. Yeah. It's weird because nationality is a big thing in motorsport. It's always like, you're on the podium and have your flag and your national anthem and stuff. But I don't know, having it go as far as the teams and drivers feels a little bit weird. They did say they'd try and probably do what they used to, which is run it from like December to June, July, so they don't actually try and directly compete with F1 and they don't have clashes, which is sensible.
For me, like, if you're going to try and differentiate it from what you want, then make it just make a crazy car that's like super grippy and has probably a relatively simple engine in the back of it. Do all the things that all of the Formula One fans complain that Formula One doesn't do. So like you've got your you've got your V8 faction or V10 faction, stick a V10 in the back of it. you've got a lot of regulations in that Formula One trying to slow the cars down. I think just give them a car like the Red Bull X 2019 that they did in Gran Turismo. That was kind of like a closed cockpit, closed wheels, adaptive aero, crazy underfloor downforce. Do something mental. Like, don't just differentiate yourself by saying, "Oh, it's the Nations League." It's not that exciting. It's not interesting. The car needs to be different and exciting.
There were some like V8s or V10s the last time around, I think, weren't they?
I think
that was sort of the era that we were in
yeah.
anyway. So it was probably the same or similar spec engine to what Formula One was working to at the time in retrospect. But if they return to something like that, or
I've seen talk of them like wanting to go down the sort of synthetic fuel route, which sounds to me like we're going to use big loud V8s, but we're going to still have green credentials by using synthetic fuels.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
I mean, there's worse.
I've heard it
worse
before, though. I've heard it before. Formula One do it already. So again, like, there's nothing here that's making me go, I will watch this instead of Formula One, or I will supplement my Formula One or my motorsport watching with this. It's not. I feel like without doing anything particularly special with the car, I just don't think it's going to grab my attention.
Because the fact that this has come up again feels a lot to me like jumping on the Drive to Survive growth of motorsport in general bandwagon.
Yeah,
but as you say, you need to offer. Well, yeah, a little bit, but you need to offer something that's going to draw people in. You can't just turn up and do Formula One but with flags. Like,
yeah, exactly, and that's what this feels like. To me, it just feels like Formula One with a spec car and flags.
Yeah. So it would be a spec series, which would obviously make it.
The only way that works is if the spec. If the only way it works is for me is if the spec car is insane.
Yeah,
like if they do the things that Formula One have been afraid to do in the past, that's how this thing can differentiate itself. And it's like, you like Formula One, then you'll love this. It should be like that. It shouldn't be you like Formula One, you might enjoy this.
Yeah, like there are definitely open goals for things F1 does badly that another series can come along and do a better job of. So yeah. Something to keep an eye on. I'm interested to see what actually gets announced and what they are aiming to do with this. I remain extremely skeptical because, as I say, this sort of story has cropped up every few years since about 2009. But
I mean,
the names behind this sound impressive, at least.
Yeah, they're good names. It sounds like they've got a decent crew of people to launch it. But I think, and there is room in my life for a winter motor racing series for sure.
Oh yeah,
like I'd quite happily watch motor racing over the winter as long as it was different from. I don't want more Formula One. And when you think how long the F1 calendar is anyway, what did we say? It was December to July. So Formula One calendar ends end of November, I think, this year.
Yeah,
and it goes until you got the off season until March. Usually, it'll be early to mid-March, I would say, next season, if they're going to add even more races. So there's still quite a big overlap. There's like 2 months of overlap over the course of 5-month season. 6-7 month season. Actually, there's not that much overlap, I suppose, but still, like, people are not going to watch the end of the A1 GP series because they're going to have moved over to F1 already.
I was about to say, they'll get lots of viewers in December, January, February, and then March comes around and F1 starts and it'll just tail off completely.
Yeah. I think if they could do it December to March and have it as a shorter season and compress it a bit, and because, they say they're going to run a race season from December to July, but how many actual races are they going to have in that time? Is it going to be 1 race a month? Are there only going to be 7 races, or is it going to be 7 or 8 races, or is it going to be more than that? Are they going to go for 10, 15, 20 races?
So it's also going to be interesting where they race given that time of year schedule, because I mean, even when you look at Southern Hemisphere motorsports, my example being something like supercars in Australia, even that runs March to October. I think it runs pretty much the same time as F1.
Yeah.
And they're on the like opposite seasonal. I mean, yes, it's a very different climate, but you know what I mean? Like, where are they going to run December through?
Yeah.
Like
Australia, they're going to have
other than
eight rounds in Australia. Yeah.
Melbourne,
I mean, they've got enough circuits.
Brisbane,
Maybe it'll
It's basically, maybe that's what A1 is. It's Australia 1 GP. That's what it is.
We've cracked it. We've seen through.
Sorted. There can just be a support series for Aussie supercars.
Yeah. Done.
I'll be right with that.
Yeah.
Speaking of interesting spec series, did you watch any of Indy 500 qualifying?
All I know is that McLaren are looking fairly decent this year.
McLaren are looking very good this year. It was ridiculously close. So Alex Palous on pole. His 4-lap average speed was 234.217 miles per hour, which is the fastest ever pole time. Reading's VK in second was 0.006 miles per hour behind, which works out to 0.004 of a second across 4 laps, which is 10 miles, which is ludicrously close.
Wow.
The whole top 6 was ridiculous. But yeah, McLaren, so Rosenquist was 3rd, O'Ward 5th, Rossi 7th, Cannon 9th. So they are well up there. And all through practice, just the whole sort of top sort of 10 or so have just been incredibly close. So it's sizing up to be a pretty good race, I think.
Can I say something potentially offensive?
Go on.
Never know what stops you.
I don't know why it doesn't. I don't know why they bother doing qualifying for the Indy 500.
We were talking a little bit about this the other day, actually. It feels a bit like Le Mans 24-hour qualifying, doesn't it? Like, it's a nice to have, I suppose, but ultimately a race that long, it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah. And in a series that is a spec series, it's not like someone's going to put it on pole and just run away with it with a supercar.
Yeah, exactly.
So
even the trophy they got for pole, like the Indy 500 winners trophy, is probably like second only to what's the ice hockey one, the Stanley Cup, in terms of just ludicrously giant trophy. And then he got his pole position trophy, and it was like he could like put it in his hand luggage to take it home, kind of thing. Like even the trophy knows it's kind of unimportant.
Does it just say sorry all the way around?
It's just a shrugging emoji.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to watch the actually important bit, the race is this Sunday. It's after Monaco, 12:45 local time, which is 5:45 for us here in the UK, which is a fairly sociable time for us over here. It's a really, even if you don't watch IndyCar in general, the 500 is just its own weird beast of a race to watch. It's very interesting. I'm quite looking forward to it.
Two randomly related things to that conversation. One, did you know the Stanley Cup was made in Sheffield?
I did not know that.
Steel.
That's a fun fact.
There you go. Number 2, did you see Callum Islett's amazing speed during, I can't remember if it was practice or quali. Did you see?
Yes.
Did you see? Basically, there's usually one every year where like the timing triggers glitch, and it said that Callum Islet had done a lap at something like 75 million miles per hour or something because it had glitched over the line. And I just remember the reason I found out about it is because he tweeted the screenshot and just put rookies. And it is like quite a good tweet. But yeah, there's usually one a year where someone's done like 1 million miles per hour because of the way it's worked.
He did a really good job, actually, Callum Islet.
Yeah.
They had all kinds of problems.
Second or third year over there now?
Second, I think, yeah. They had all kinds of problems with his car, and they had to like pack a load of the practice and testing time into. Basically, he said they had 12 laps to do what everyone else had done across 3 days. And yeah, he still made it onto the grid. It's very good. Also, Catherine Legg made it onto the grid as well.
Nice.
She pops up just to do this one race quite often. So yeah, good to see her on there as well.
Yeah.
And then last little thing before we move on to, well, it is a Monaco thing, but it's Formula 3 related. And that is the fact that not only is Formula 3 finally back this year, because I've not had a race since Melbourne at the beginning of April. So they're all going to be quite rusty. This is also going to be the first Formula 3 race in Monaco in 18 years.
Really?
It is. For context, the last person to win Monaco in Formula 3 machinery was Lewis Hamilton.
Does that include GP3? I'm assuming. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's normally F2, well, GP2 and Porsche Super Cup, isn't it, that go to Monaco?
Yeah, and they did have for a few years some Formula 3000 there.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there's been nothing lower spec than F2 there in a very long time. So, Formula 3 drivers who've not raced in the best part of 2 months, send them around Monaco. What's the worst that can happen?
That's going to be fun. I mean, that's something I'm tuning into where I wouldn't.
For sure.
One of those things I would normally kind of catch up on in between other things. I think that one I might actually stick it on live this week.
Yeah, definitely. Which brings us on to Monaco proper.
Yeah.
Should we do some storylines, some things we're looking at?
Storylines for us, Stu?
I'll take us through some storylines. So the first one this week is slight risk of rain across the whole weekend. So the Formula 3 and Formula 2 races could get very interesting, and qualifying and practice and all of it. So that's an exciting prospect for everyone.
20% chance for the race, I think I saw.
Yeah, I mean, that means it won't rain in Formula 1 world.
Providing the lights work, because we all know in Monaco the lights don't work properly when it rains.
Well, hopefully they've learned from that they're Formula 1 and sometimes there are races outside. So who do you think's got the most to gain from there being a wet session? Say a wet race or a wet quali. Who's best placed to take advantage of that?
I feel like at a circuit like this, in terms of like what it alters, it doesn't alter as much because of the unique kind of setting that Monaco puts you in anyway. Like, we always talk about rain being an equalizer, but the Monaco circuit in itself is a bit of an equalizer because it's you take a very different car there, and it's very, very unique in that sense. So the only thing that I think it'll cause is probably more mistakes. It's going to be a combination of people wanting to be out there first to make sure they don't get caught in any incidents or have voided lap times, but also people wanting to be out there last at the same time to make sure they're there when the circuit's at its best from people running on it and clearing it. So I think there's going to be a lot of laps set in comparison to what you might normally see somewhere like this. Yeah.
Lots of traffic. I mean, Verstappen and Hamilton, the obvious answers when you talk about wet weather driving.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Lance Stroll, I think, would probably benefit from
He's done
a
decent
wet race
in the
as
rain
well.
before.
He's a decent wet weather driver.
Yeah. Nice, interesting. Yeah, I think you've probably covered. I think Alonso's always in the race as well.
Yeah.
Next storyline is: will we actually see some action now? Now F1 are finally doing the broadcast themselves. So if you didn't know this, if you're listening, you didn't know this. The broadcasters of the Monaco Grand Prix are usually the Automobile Club de Monaco, I believe.
Yeah. That's right.
And for many, many years, they've done it. It was the only race that Formula 1 didn't do all of the production for. And that has now changed. So instead of the Auto Club de Monaco cutting away at stupid times, it'll be the F1 Formula 1 management cutting away at stupid times. Because they're both guilty of it. I don't know why this is even a story, to be honest. I think they're both really like the way they religiously the way FOM religiously cut away on the third lap every single race, regardless of what is going on track. Cut away and show a replay of what's happening. They do it so doggedly, and it's just so ridiculous. It's like, no, there's things happening. I want to see what's happening. Yes, there was the big howler that at the Monaco Grand Prix where we just saw a shot of Stroll going along, right in the middle of the only point of action in the race.
Yeah,
and that is it's a bit of a howler. But then you can say the same about FOM, middle of an overtake, cutting away to the crowd cheering. It's like, whoa, hang on, I want to see this overtake actually happen. I don't want to see just some fans. So, they're both just as bad as each other. I don't personally, I don't see a big as an audience member, I don't think we'll notice any difference.
It's one of those things where I always feel like Monaco has been worse for this sort of thing, but is that just because I know it's someone different doing it, so I'm looking for it.
Subconscious, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it
subconscious
probably
maybe.
is, to be honest.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that one. The next one is, can Alonso do the unthinkable and beat the Red Bulls? What do you think? I think he's capable of it. I think if he's going to do it anywhere, I think this is the track he's going to do it.
He's certainly capable of it, but as I see my own face in this camera shot, I notice I'm inadvertently wearing my Alonso
Damn
cap.
it, Tom. Why would you do that?
So as I look at myself in the camera, I sort of think, yeah, he can, but he won't.
What era Alonso cap is that, though?
This is when he was retiring the first time, because he's got all his wins underneath. Look, there you go.
Oh, okay. It might be dated enough to not have the negative effect then.
We'll see. I mean, when he bins it into a wall and the curse becomes real, then
we all know who to blame.
It stands true.
Yeah,
Come get me.
I do think he's got a real chance though. Like the Red Bull has been, although they've got I think 4 out of 5 pole positions this season, haven't they? Red Bull.
Yeah.
They always look beatable in qualifying. Their qualifying pace is nowhere near what their race pace is. Their big advantage comes from DRS. That's basically a non-event in Monaco. I think they're very beatable. I think this is the most beatable Red Bull will have been all season.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that they're probably, Red Bull themselves are probably looking at this race going, this is a vulnerable one for us. If we win this one, we'll win the championship.
Which is weird because in the Mercedes dominance years, this was always the race that Red Bull managed to nick off Mercedes.
Yeah, it was the one that Mercedes struggled at, exactly.
Yeah.
And I do find it interesting, you sort of touched on it there, but this year there is something particularly different about that Red Bull, which is in the past, they used to not necessarily have brilliant race pace, but they would always have one lap pace. And think back to like the Seb Vettel era, they built that car to get on pole and then let him sort of kind of drive away with it a little bit. And whereas now it's definitely more about race pace and race management, and they're utilising sort of just the sheer pace of the drivers to get on the front row more than anything. And that, I think that's one of the reasons qualifying has been kind of as tight as it is. Like what we're seeing, kind of top 10, maybe even top 15 covered by like not more than a second and a half in reality when all times are in. So
I guess the question is, as Macheco has just said in the chat, is that just them setting up the car for the race, knowing that if they don't get on the front row, oh well, they've got the race pace to overtake everybody.
Yeah,
so maybe this weekend we'll see a lot more qualifying pace out of that. Yeah, but
yeah, it's possible. But on to the next one. Will Mercedes updates leave them struggling for pace, or will they make the difference at a tight and twisty Monaco?
It's so difficult when we don't know what the upgrades are.
Yeah. I was really excited for the last race. Well, for Emilia-Romagna, the thing that I was most gutted about, as you know, as sad as the whole situation is there, like the thing that as a Formula One fan that sort of disappointed me the most was the fact that I wasn't going to get to see all these new upgrades for the new cars.
Yeah.
Because you can't help but be excited to see what difference they're going to make and if it's going to close up the championship. So yeah, it's exciting to see those upgrades this race. I think we'll actually see them on Wednesday, there'll be loads of photos around and the news wires will be buzzing with what's going on. Who knows what's going to happen to Mercedes race weekend though, eh?
It's going to be such a hard read as well though. Like if they suddenly turn up and are fast, we're going to be left thinking, but is that just because it's Monaco? Because it's so different.
Yeah.
It's a very, very difficult one.
I was going to say we'll have to look out for those diagrams they have to release where they show off what the new parts are. But there was that one last year where, I can't remember which team it was, they just drew a big circle around the entire car because they had that many updates. So we might not find much out from that.
Yeah. The next one is, where will Ferrari end up as all this shakes out? There's not been much talk about Ferrari really from us, especially other than that they're not where they need to be. But they have had, they're the only team to beat Red Bull in qualifying. So does Leclerc or Sainz have just as much chance as Alonso of beating the Red Bulls to pole this weekend?
I feel like I can tell you one place Charles Leclerc will end up at some point this weekend, and that's the outside of the exit of a swimming pool.
Yeah, the exit.
Because at least once a year, at least once a year coming out the swimming pool section, he bins it into that outside wall.
It used
Usually
to be
in practice, well, it's the pair of them. It's the pair of them trying to take too much speed through that chicane and basically usually, more often than not, it's getting too much of the inside curb on the exit and it launching them into the wall. On a couple of occasions, I think they've both clipped the inside of the first bit of the chicane on the swimming pool itself.
Everyone does. Everyone
and then it's then caused them to career into the wall. But usually between the two of them, they hit the exit of that corner at least once.
I do love that amazing high-mo shot that they use where the car like comes in and it just you see the front, the sort of rubber of the wheel across the top of it just brush across the back, just touch it, not even like leaving a mark, but just like caresses the barrier.
Yeah, there was a year recently I'm sure it was the last couple of years, where the Sky sent Martin Brundle down to basically stand in that corner, and they were going through underneath him. My word, did that look impressive? Just the sheer it looks fast anyway. It looks fast anyway, but when you see it from that angle, how quick they go through that corner, it's just mind-boggling. Yeah, through the chicane in general, it's just absolutely mind-boggling.
I think it's my favourite shot in Formula One.
I was about
the
to
shot
say
looking down into the first part of the chicane in the swimming pool where they go left, right, and it's just such a rapid change of direction. They don't look real going through there. The change of direction is so quick that they literally don't look like physics. It doesn't look your eye.
Yeah, it doesn't look possible, does it?
Doesn't look right. Yeah. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
I love that. I don't know if the modern era of F1 cars are the same, but I know certainly with the last generation that the optimum setup for the swimming pool was that you had the car just loose enough so that as you turned in to the left, your back end stepped out ever so slightly. And then as it gripped up again, it sort of shot you into the corner. And that was like I remember reading an article about that's kind of the optimum setup to be able to take the swimming pool section as fast as possible.
Interesting.
Yeah.
My final storyline, which I haven't actually written down, but the Perez Verstappen battle is obviously still going. That battle's not over, despite what Formula One press seem to want you to think. That's still alive and kicking for sure. We're only 5 races into the season, and fight me in the comments if you think that Max Verstappen has already won this championship. Because I mean,
Perez is defending Monaco winner, right? The guy's good there. I mean, we talked about this being a season of street races. If that's going to suit anyone, it's going to suit Sergio Perez.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So, he's got a good chance of reeling in some points on his teammate this weekend. And, let's hope for Checo that he can do it and keep that championship alive.
Very much so.
Predictions?
With all that said, shall I run us through some predictions?
Yes.
So, if anyone wants to get involved with this after hearing it, you can head to backofthegrid.com and sign up if you haven't played with us before.
Or if you're feeling really brave, do your predictions before we do our predictions. See how many points you score there.
Yeah, pause the podcast. Go to backofthegrid.com, register or sign in, and do the predictions now. Unless you're listening live in the Discord, then you'll have to wait 5 minutes until we've drawn the random driver, then do them. So maybe just I don't know, plug your ears or something. It's the only way you're not going to be able to do it.
Let's go.
Right. Fastest in Q3, first and foremost. Stu, who are you going with?
Oh, man, it's a tough one. Monaco. Ugh. I would be rushing myself if I was not the person making this prediction, but I am buying myself time to try and...
I'll go first. I'll let you have some thinking time. Fernando Alonso.
Ooh, nice.
I'm doing it.
And just to push Stu even further, I'm going to say Sergio Perez. So we're back on you, Stu, immediately.
I'm going to go Leclerc then.
I hope you enjoy that extra second and a half of thinking time we gave you.
Yeah.
And for selfishly trying to buy time on your first choice, you can go first again because you didn't technically go first this time. Winner.
I think it'll be Leclerc. I think
Leclerc double.
I'm going to go. It's the one race that you have to go for the double, I think. Yeah. Predictions here.
Yeah, it has to be. I'm going Alonso.
And I'm going to do the same with Perez. So that was easy. Ooh. First DNF. Do you know what? I've got the hat on. It's going to really upset Chris and probably a lot of people, but I'm just going to say Alonso because I've got the hat on.
Damn.
Maybe you try and score a point from it will cancel it out.
Hopefully
Given
I
how
can break
badly
the
we're
curse.
scoring this season.
Hopefully I can break the curse. Chris, you can go next on this one.
What rookies have we got this year? Piastri and
De Vries.
Sargent
technically. And
technically.
De Vries. Oh, De Vries.
It's gonna have to be.
I mean, I know
it's
Stu's picking anyway.
I feel really bad, but I think I do have to say De Vries.
Okay,
feel
what
really
about you,
bad
Stu?
too. Sadly, I
He's
think
doing the same.
the smart money is on De Vries.
Ironically, it's probably the circuit on the calendar that he's got the most recent experience of, because Formula E have been using the full circuit for the last few seasons.
Yeah, true.
That's true.
True.
I mean, it might be amazing.
Could be. Number of finishes. Chris, do you want to go first on this one?
18. I'm going high.
Ooh, that's high. Although, to be fair, the last couple of Monaco GPs, I feel like we have had a decent number of finishes, and all the accidents have generally come in practice or quali, generally speaking.
Too easy these days, F1.
That said, I'm going to go 17, slightly lower. What about you, Stu?
I'm going 16.
16. And then generate that random driver for us, Chris.
A random driver this week, Lewis Hamilton.
Ouch.
Let's assess those updates, boys.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just going to throw it out there straight away and put 6th. I think the car will be okay, but not good enough to compete with the other guys at the front, and he'll just be chasing them.
I'm going to say 3rd.
Ooh.
A podium from Stu.
He's very good around here, so I'm going to say 3rd.
My thinking's similar to yours, Tom. I will say 5th.
5th. Okay.
I just think the car's less of a factor around here than the
definitely,
driver.
definitely. So yeah,
it's really important that it's really important that he gets on top of what's basically going to be a new car.
Yeah, it depends on how that feels underneath him, doesn't it? So
if you want to see how much a driver can make a difference at Monaco, go find a video of Robert Kubica nearly sticking on pole in a BMW that was not a front row car. I can't remember what year it was, but yeah, he very nearly got a pole position in a pretty average car.
Yeah,
definitely. And if you want to submit your predictions, as we were saying before, head to backofthegrid.com where you can register or sign into your existing account. And if you want to join in any of our fantasy leagues, there's links on there to Grid Rival and the official F1 fantasy game, where we've got leagues on both. So hit those up as well if you want to join our leagues there. With that being said, should we do some inbox, gentlemen?
Let's.
Yes.
Keep it saying now. No, stay out. Box. Hey, man.
Shall I go first?
Yeah,
I'll go first. From Max. Hey, man. Do you think we'll see any more on-track overtakes at Monaco than we did at Imola 2023? Alternatively, will TV footage be significantly improved now it's under control of FOM and not in-house TV direction? We've sort of already done the second part. Overtaking at Monaco this weekend?
Not in these cars.
I think little to none, unfortunately. Too big. Can't run as close as they could. It's just not.
Last year in a season of many overtakes, I think it was the least overtake. I think there was like one or two.
It was.
It's very few. I think, in fact, that was the one where they cut away to Stroll just pootling around.
Yeah,
and
the one overtake.
That was the one single overtake the entire race. So yeah, I think it'll be very, very few overtakes this race.
Yes, as is usually the case, qualifying is going to be the bulk of the excitement this weekend.
Yeah.
Yep.
Next one from Corey Zilla Zombie Killer says, how do you feel about the 4th proposed race in the US? I think it's totally the wrong thing to do. This is still a question. The US doesn't need 2 races, in my opinion, let alone 3. I'm an American. It puts unnecessary stress on the teams, drivers, and just logistically, it's hard on everyone involved. Breaks the mold of the races held in the same region for different parts of the season. The only exception before being Canada.
I don't have a huge problem with there being 3 races there. I don't necessarily think they're the right 3 places to be racing, but I think the idea of there being 3 races in America, I don't necessarily have a problem with. A 4th one is definitely too much, I think. I think this comes off the back of talk of a New York race has kind of bubbled up again. A bigger problem is the fact that they have 3 races there. And obviously, there's Canada, there's Mexico, and there is Brazil, all kind of in that same sort of time zone. And they're all kind of separated, or a lot of them are separated out throughout the year. Like, if you're going to have that many races in one sort of part of the world, at least put them a bit close together on the calendar.
I would also say, location-wise, I mean, the people of the southern states may disagree with me here, but rather than having like Vegas, Texas, Florida, which are all just kind of in a line across the bottom half of the country, why not drop one of those for New York so that there is a race in those northern states? Because somewhere between Montreal and, having to go down to Kota or something, because surely there's a bunch of fans in like, the Midwest or something that would love to get to a race, but Montreal and Texas are both a bit too far, and like something along that East Coast is maybe, I don't know. My geography is not necessarily that on point, but I feel like there must be some F1 fans kind of stuck in Central America there that would much prefer something up that part rather than having to go all the way to Montreal or all the way down to Texas and stuff.
I think the biggest concern for me isn't necessarily like the specific location in North America or anywhere in the world for that matter. I think what's most important is that the circuits are good and they create good racing and create a good Formula One race. And think about the actual racing rather than think about all the pomp and ceremony and silliness. When you look at Miami and all the faff that they've got going on around it, it's just like, I want to watch a good Formula One race. I'm a purist. I don't really care about, will.i.am conducting an orchestra before the race. I want to see the cars going around the track, and I want to see action on track, and I want to see them go to tracks that promote that kind of racing. So, I get that there are other interests in Formula One, and that there's a different crowds want different things and stuff, and different countries have different sort of preferences the way they would run their Formula One races. But ultimately, I think it should be about the fans, not necessarily about what a particular promoter thinks.
Yeah.
So, and it shouldn't necessarily even be about what's going to make them. This might sound silly, but like, it's not necessarily about what's going to make them the most money short term. It's about going to tracks and giving fans a real show and real racing. And I think some of the decisions that have been made in recent years about newer races have not necessarily had that in the forefront of their mind, and I think that needs to change for the longevity of the sport.
Obviously we haven't seen what the Vegas circuit's going to provide yet, but looking at that circuit map, I'm not holding out much hope for that being a particularly interesting race. The Miami circuit, this year it produced an all right race, but it's still pretty uninspiring. And when you've got places like Indianapolis with the infield course, which is great, like update Watkins Glen to get it a grade 1 license.
That's such a good track.
Yeah,
anybody would take Watkins Glen over. I think a lot of people would take Watkins Glen over Kota, to be honest, and that's the best of the 3 that they currently have. Like,
you take it over New York for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
if you're going to have a race in that part of the world, we don't need another street track. It's not that far from New York. Go to the Glen. Hashtag go to the Glen. That's this year's campaign.
We're starting it. Next one. Jose says, hey man, with the seemingly backward step in how well cars can follow each other around a track, do we expect Monaco to be a bore fest again this year? Will they have fixed their starting lines for this year too?
Yes and yes.
Someone's gaffer taping a tarp over the top of the lights right now just in case it rains.
But yeah, I agree. I can't see much happening in the way of racing, unfortunately.
The only passing place really for F1 cars these days is out of the tunnel down into the chicane, and even that is like you've got to just bully your way past.
Yeah. You're throwing it up the inside or something to make that work.
Next from Benson. Hey man, in which session do you think Charles Leclerc will put into the wall this weekend? If he's in which season, the answer's all of them.
A fellow optimist.
Q3.
It feels like a Q3 thing, doesn't it?
Q3 whilst holding the fastest lap.
Yeah, that's my prediction.
That's his usual form, isn't it? Get the fastest lap and then stick it in a wall.
While he's fastest and Verstappen needs to get a lap in.
Yeah. Oh dear, I appear to have hit the wall and my car
I am
stopped.
stupid. Oh no, I am stupid.
Or am I?
I definitely don't think Perez will be having an upsee. Definitely an accident crash again this year after how that nearly destroyed their relationship.
Yeah. Next one.
Next one.
From Jay Alexander. Hey man, is this getting a bit old now? No, it's
Never.
not, Jay Alexander.
Never.
With McLaren looking good for the Indy 500, are there any other teams that you would like to see try their hand at other series, and which series in particular?
Oh, that's a good question.
Interesting. That's a good one.
I have a quick fire answer for this if you want one.
Go
for it.
So for Mercedes to enter the new spec of Le Mans with something similar to what they did with Project One, because Project One probably isn't that far away from being Le Mans hypercar spec. So for them to actually build a Project One that is to hypercar spec for Le Mans, that's a quick answer from me.
It's a good one.
That'd be good.
I'm going to say Ferrari to IndyCar, but as a engine manufacturer as well as a team, which is it's one of the things every time Ferrari threatens to leave F1, that's always one of the things they threaten to do. Like, we'll just go into IndyCar instead and build engines there. So do it. Go do IndyCar.
Yeah.
Oof. Wow. You've left me nothing on the table. It's difficult. I'm thinking World Rally, and I'm thinking Williams in World Rally Championship would be maybe interesting, but they've got their hands tied with Formula. They can barely afford to run a Formula One team, so it's probably not going to happen.
It happened once before to some degree, didn't it? They made that special edition clear. That was a WRX spec, wasn't it? WRC spec.
No, it wasn't. No.
Was it just
based on the F1 stuff? Yeah. It was nothing to do with WRC.
I thought it had rally stuff in it. Maybe not.
No, because it had Williams F1 written down the side of it.
I'd like to see Aston Martin do more stuff now. They're like upgrading all their facilities and growing. I'm not sure what Aston would do.
Yeah, I mean they're already doing. An Aston Martin hypercar would be cool as well. To be fair.
Because there kind of was with the Valkyrie that they made in association with Red Bull, and then the Red Bull and Aston Martin relationship went sour, so that car just kind of went away.
That was kind of like an X90. It was almost a Red Bull X19 kind of vibe. Like it was like a real life manifestation, I think, of what that car would be, because it was Adrian Newey design.
So it was give Adrian Newey a blank piece of paper and say, do whatever you want.
It was, I guess it was similar vibes to what McLaren did with the F1, wasn't it? Because that's what they did with, can't remind me his name. Can you remember? The head designer from McLaren at the time.
Gordon Murray?
Thank you, Gordon Murray. That was the same sort of thing of go design the most ambitious road car that you can think of. And that's kind of what that was. Not quite the same.
And he said, cool, 3 seats is plenty, right?
Yeah. I still find that cool to this day, the fact that you've got the centralised driver's seat with the 2 passenger seats behind so that you can actually get 3 people in it. I do think that's just a cool little quirk of the F1. Nice. And that is it for Inbox. So thanks for that, gentlemen. I'm going to take just a moment to do a little bit of self-charity drive plug. I'm with some colleagues from work to support a charity that helped my business partner's child while she was very ill last year, the Sick Children's Trust. I'm going to be doing what is a 24-mile, 38-kilometre hike around 3 kind of, I want to call them mountains. They're probably not really high enough to be called mountains, but 3 700-metre plus peaks. They're mini mountains, probably, big hills. And that'll be taking place on the 2nd of June. So there's myself and Andrew, who it's to support. And then there's a bunch of my team from my business sort of joining us to help support us as well. So if anyone out there would like to support us, please do. You can head to my link, which is just donate.tomking.uk, which will take you through to our Just Giving page. Just a heads up, it is all in Andrew's name because it's for his daughter, and it is all kind of in the Reach Studios branding, which is my company. But it's also pinned on my Twitter, so if anyone follows me on Twitter, it's there as well. But yeah, if anyone is kind enough to help contribute towards our goal on that, it would be very much appreciated. And I'll report back in a couple of weeks on how sore my legs are after that. Because 32 kilometres this weekend was rough. Yeah, we did 32 kilometres around Edale in a very similar fashion this weekend, and I'm still not quite fully recovered, and it's 2 days later.
Yeah, I know, Edale. That gets extremely steep in places, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was the best we could find as a practice route with staying local to where we are. So, yeah,
that sounds good. That sounds really cool.
Sounds good.
We'll stick a link in the show notes for that as well if you want to look for it, for sure.
Cool.
But
yeah, that is it for this week. So thank you to everyone who has joined us. Enjoy the Monaco Grand Prix as best you can. And we'll be back next week to review whatever does or maybe doesn't happen. We'll see.
And
bye, everyone.
Preview the next race.
Oh, yeah, and the preview, because it's now a double header instead of a triple header. So, yeah, we've got another race to go into. So, yeah, see you all for that next week.
Thank you to all of our patrons for joining us every week and for supporting us. You make a big difference to us. You make this, make it possible for us to even do this. So we really do appreciate your support. And thanks to all the people who joined us live for that. So yeah.
And a final thank you to everyone who's been subscribing to us on YouTube, because that's new.
Yes, very important.
And if you didn't realise, we are now on YouTube. So search for Back of the Grid on YouTube, and you can see our wonderful faces whilst we talk about this instead of just hearing our lovely voices. You can put faces to sounds now. So head to YouTube.
Okay, we can go now.
We can go now? Is that enough?
Yeah, that's enough. I think we've done it. I think we've covered all the
bases.
Bye,
Everyone.
Bye.